Let's talk about an interesting company, MENA Art Management. They are managing art collections for wealthy individuals around the world. And when you look at their business and how they come up with the idea of doing art management, you find out that actually in their history, there were once and still a MENA Contemporary, which is a studio for artists to come and create their art, but also an exhibition hall that allows buyers to come and view those arts and purchase them. So from the MENA Contemporary, they came up with the idea of having an art collection management. But how did they come up with the idea of MENA Contemporary is even more interesting, because they were originally in the art storage business. They were actually asked by collectors and by artists to store in special temperature their collections. And how they come up with the idea of doing art storage, that's even more interesting. They were originally in the wine storage business. They were storing huge collections of wine bottles for collectors and wealthy individuals around the world, and they came up with the idea of the people who needed wine storage actually needed art storage. But the more interesting thing is, how did they come up with the wine storage business? And that is the real big story. They are Moshe Moving, which are famous trucking moving company in New York. They started with a truck. They started by moving offices and buildings and houses, and as they noticed the different customer requests, they evolved. So what started as a very low-key trucking and moving business have evolved into a wine storage, into an art storage, into contemporary display and studios, and into an art collection. This is a company that never stopped paying attention to customer cues, and even though they were not part of their business, because I tell you, there is a big distance between being in the art collection management and being in the trucking and moving business. If Moshe Moving would have focused just on their industry and reframed the question around how do I deliver better moving experience, they might stay with just better padded trucks, as opposed to paying attention to the customer cues, which I'm sure started in the fringes, but then they build up. They always kept listening to the customers. They followed the experience insight model, and then they evolved their offering based on the customer needs. Did they have core competence in art collection? Absolutely not. Did they have core competence in studio? No. But they acquired it because that was the way to differentiate. That was the way to create memorable. And now you can see, moving trucks, a dime a dozen. But taking it all the way to art collection management, now they got a food chain and a complete experience that is absolutely differentiated from their competition. Another great example, when Bank of America decided to do ethnography in order to find a way to differentiate themselves from the competition. Well, there are so many ways you can change your rates and lower your rates and so on and so forth. But there is, at the end of the day, it's a form of discounts. It's a form of losing profits in the attempt to acquire customers. What they try to do is do something different. They decided to actually follow the insight model, pay attention to customers. And as they were observing customers without asking too many questions, they started to notice a couple of things. First cue was customers felt that they're not saving enough. Second cue, they noticed that customers are rounding up their credit cards and primarily their checking accounts. Why? It was easier to calculate. And then they came up with the idea of matching those two needs. On one side, I do not save enough. On the other side, people are rounding out their check. And they came up with the concept of Keep the Change. The Keep the Change program basically said, you want to save more? We'll help you. Each time you write a check, each time you do a credit card transaction, we'll round it up, take the difference in cents and move it to your saving accounts. It was so successful, people loved that ultimately it led to about 2.5 million customers sign up, 700,000 new checking accounts, and over 1 million new saving accounts in the first year. It was so successful because it went straight into the hearts and the emotions of customers. It understood them, it understood what they wanted, and that's what they took all the way to changing the way they do business and creating solutions that fits the customer needs, and of course created the profitability. Because that is the essence of innovating the customer experience. Innovating the customer experience is not about spending more money, but rather investing in creating differentiation that will be profitable for you. That's one of the reasons why I called my first book on the topic Passionate and Profitable. Passionate should not be expensive. Passionate is the better way to be profitable. Internally, we call it jokingly greed through love, which is how do you get greedy, but through loving your customers, not through efficiency and trying to reduce the value for them.